Hey everyone, it's Don. I'm at the Romanesque gate of Woodland Cemetery in Dayton, Ohio to take a big tree tour. So let's go. Woodland Cemetery is around 200 acres, located in the city of Dayton. It was established in 1841, and it's on the National Register of Historic Places, connected with the National Aviation Trail and Heritage because some special occupants that I'll show you later. But we're here ostensibly for the trees because it's also an arboretum, and it's a home to many large, beautiful specimens of lots of species. This is, of course, the Romanesque gate that you move through to enter the cemetery. So let's do it. Just as you enter Woodland, there's a massive oak tree that greets you. So there are about 65 oak species in the US. There's supposedly 25 different species in Woodland Cemetery. And this is a massive one. After having looked around the cemetery a bit, it's the biggest one of this species I've seen. And this is a black oak. Here's a thick furrowed bark of black oak. I measured that thing. It's just shy of 5 feet in diameter. It's a beautiful tree. It has some Boston ivy climbing it, I see, that could be removed. However, the canopy is really nice, large arching branches, and very broad leaf. It has, it's very closely related to a red oak. Very broad leaves, but that thick furrowed bark is unique from red oak, which is usually smoother than that and flakier than that. Here's just an example of the leaves. Okay. And so that's the first of many large trees we're going to see here today at Woodland, which is supposed to have around 2,000 to 3,000 different individual trees, a couple hundred species, I believe. And we'll see what we can do to find the biggest and best of them. So join me as I take a tour of Woodland Cemetery in Dayton, Ohio. People know sassafras as the tree that makes different leaf shapes, from the trident to the mitten to the simple leaf, and also the fact that sassafras roots can be made into a beverage, sarsaparilla. And so in here, this section of Woodland, there's a beautiful grove of very old and large sassafras. These are among the largest sassafras trees I've certainly ever seen. I think of sassafras as a fairly small tree, living in edges and understories. I've seen them get up to maybe 2 feet in diameter or so in the wild, but take a look at these. Here's one. This is a smaller a tree here, so it's not exceptionally impressive. I've seen sassafras that big in the wild before, but when you look around, this tree right here that has the bark that makes it look like a redwood is a sassafras. It's huge. Okay, that thing is probably, getting close to 100 feet tall, probably 90, probably about 3 feet in diameter. Here's one over here, not as tall. I see there's been a little bit of breakage in the upper canopy of these trees, but this one's even thicker yet. This one's probably 3.5 feet in diameter, right? And there's one over there that has the whole upper half of it broken away, or more, upper 2/3, about the same diameter, 3.5 feet. And there's a few over here still. Now when you turn in this direction, however, you see as far as I can tell, the grand sassafras of Woodland Cemetery. And so I've seen this tree before, and I got a measurement this time. And so it's, again, not too tall because it has had its top broken off. But this tree is 4 feet in diameter. I don't know how many people can say they've seen a 4-foot diameter sassafras tree before, but there's one. You can find it here in Woodland Cemetery. Okay, that thick furrowed bark, right? And of course the beverage is made from the roots of sassafras. And unfortunately, after people had been using it as a beverage for decades and decades, it has been discovered that saffrol, an active ingredient in sassafras root extract, is a cancer-causing agent. So it's one of those things that, yeah, having that once in a while in root beer, natural root beer, probably won't kill you, but if you had it every day or many times a year, it could lead to cancer. So that's something to be aware of. Okay, now one interesting thing about these large and old sassafras trees is that they tend, after some point in their life, to make only the simple leaf shape. They don't continue to make the mittens or the trident shape. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. You know, this basic leaf shape here, right? As I look around this tree, the majority of leaves look like that. Now here is a trident, right? So you know what I'm talking about. There's the trident. And here's a mitten. There's a mitten next to it. Okay, but as I glance up this tree, there aren't many of those. Okay, they're there. But the tree generally becomes dominated by the simple leaf shape without any lobes at all. So I find that kind of interesting. All right, so here you go. I'd recommend these trees to anybody who has enjoyed sassafras. It's one of these first trees you learn about as a kid because of these identifiable leaf shapes. And so there you have it. There's some monsters here, and there are even more out in the distance here. Okay. Now, something I've noticed here at Woodland is that previously Woodland had a beautiful collection of large ash trees, black, white, and green ash trees. And they were in good shape for a long time. In fact, because they were treating them against emerald ash borer, something I feel like I end up talking about almost every episode here in Ohio. But I do see that it appears that they decided to stop their treatment program, and this is what you get when that happens. They die. The beetles come back to find them after they've lost their toxicity, and the trees die. This is the fate, unfortunately, of most large white, green, black ashes and so forth, the susceptible ash species in Ohio, and why you have to continue to treat the trees if you want them to stay alive. The beetle will not go away entirely. It will live on small trees in small numbers until some of those trees grow up enough into large enough sizes to support larger beetle populations. But what you had here in Woodland, and if you glance around, you can see these dead ash trees out in the distance in all directions. There's another big one right over there. Okay, what happened here is these trees were off limits for the beetle for many years. Here it is 2025. These trees probably started being treated in about 2012 would be my guess, 2010, 2012. And it looks like they stopped treating them a few years ago now, and this is the fate. The beetles come back and find them. And so, you know, these were sort of like a sudden gift to the beetle that for a long time had been distasteful and toxic to them. But nonetheless, it's just a decision you know, any particular organization or landowner needs to make about these things, because this is what will happen if you let them go. Everybody wants to have the magic emerald ash tree that's resistant, and that's great. We're all looking for that, but it's unlikely to happen. It's sort of like the American chestnut story in that regard. Okay, so it looks to me here that I don't know if they have a few here that they are still treating, it's possible, but these certainly are in decline. And at this point now, the issue too is they become a liability. They become very brittle and they fall, they crack apart, they tend to get blown over, and not necessarily uprooted, but broken. The trunks break quite a bit, some distance up from the base. And so they become real liabilities for falling limbs, and especially when they're near walkways and streets and houses and things like that. So that's the ash story here, and that's a sad one at the moment. Not far from those sassafras is this impressive tulip tree. Tulip trees in a forested setting will grow very straight and tall. They tend to lose the lower, say, 1/2 to 2/3 of their branches and have a high canopy in a forested situation. But this one, being open grown in this cemetery like it is just completely filled out. Its canopy is just completely filled out. It's amazing. This thing is amazing. It has branches tucked in every place there could be a branch. And it's a big one too. This tree is just short of 4.5 feet in diameter. It's about 50 inches in diameter. Beautiful specimen. All right, that's tulip tree with its very distinctive leaves. Right there, okay. Can't miss it. Can't misidentify that one. Okay. Liriodendron tulipifera. And as I look from up here, here's a close-up of the trunk. Very straight bole, B-O-L-E. All right, with very large branches. As I stand here, I see another very large one over there that I'll walk over and get a measurement on, just because I'm curious. It looks like it could be bigger than this, but nonetheless, there are massive tulip trees here. Woodland Cemetery was started in 1841, and so the trees that we're looking at, it's very possible that some of them were here in kind of a forested semi-park-like setting as they installed the cemetery aspect of it. But then a lot of trees were planted after it was started as a cemetery. And so here's another one. It's another red oak. This one's interesting because it has a huge scar. And if anybody's watched my series before, we know what that scar is caused by. Okay, that's a lightning scar, lightning strike. Okay, that blasted a strip of bark off that tree at some point, probably 10, 15 years ago, and the tree's healed around it. Of course, though, that spot makes an entry point for fungi and so forth that can decompose the inner bark there. So this tree is, I don't think it's hollow at the moment, but that could be the start of the hollowing out and weakening of that tree. So we're pretty high here in Dayton. This is one of the highest spots in the area. I believe the elevation of this cemetery is about 900 feet, which is kind of high for this area. And these trees are the tallest points on the tallest hill, so they're targets for lightning. All right, so that one suffered. But otherwise, it's very healthy looking. The canopy, the branches, the leaves generally look very good, with a few exceptions. Okay, onward. After raving about sassafras about 100 yards from here, I walk over here and I find two trees that are even bigger than the ones I profiled over there. So behind me, we have these two. These are just massive. This tree here, in terms of diameter at breast height, is 4.5 feet in diameter, almost. The other was just about 4 feet in diameter. So here are two sassafras, even larger yet. This one is, I'm pretty sure, the largest sassafras I've ever seen, and it can't be much smaller than the state champion. There have been 9 to 10 state champion trees in this cemetery. I don't know which ones they are at the moment. I can't find that information clearly, but they claim that there were 9 to 10 current or former state champions in this plot. So here's another two. Somebody really liked sassafrasses back when these things were put in the ground. Again, probably close to 200 years ago, 150 to 200 years ago, I would say, to achieve that size. This one is just massive. I also walked over and measured that tulip tree I mentioned I would check out, and it is also bigger than the tulip tree I measured up the hill. This one is also just about over 5 feet in diameter. Okay, here's the base. It's not as tall, not quite as impressive in terms of the rest of it, but it's got the other in terms of trunk diameter. And when you do this stuff like scoring trees for state or national champion contests, trees receive a score. It's an equation based on their height, their girth, and their canopy spread, with fewer points given to canopy spread. But nonetheless, this is still a massive tulip tree, just not as tall, as impressive as the one. Well, here's a good view of it from a distance. Just completely filled out, just a beautiful tree, amazing. Okay, on to more. Here's another oak in front of me. It's not overly large. It's probably about 50 years old. And it's not native to Ohio either. But I thought I'd point it out just to show you some of the variation that exists in oaks out there and what their leaves can look like. So when you first walk up to this thing, most people from Ohio would not ever think that's an oak. You might think it's a willow. And darn, this common name of this thing is willow oak. So this one is native to parts south of Ohio. It grows well here, okay, but this one is not native to Ohio. And that's a nice specimen, very tall, straight, pretty finely grained bark, fairly smooth for an oak, quite smooth actually for an oak. And they can get to be large trees. The largest one I've seen in Ohio is on the campus of Ohio University. There's a really impressive willow oak there. So you can look up through the filtered sunlight. So if you want an oak tree that's not quite as casting as much shade, you can see the shade's more dappled here under this thing. Willow oak might be your go-to. All right. There are lots of these scattered throughout Woodland. This is not an Ohio native either, but it's ginkgo. Very popular landscaping tree these days now that ashes have gone by the wayside. So there are a lot of large ginkgos I've noticed, and this is one of the bigger ones I've seen, if not the biggest. I measured this thing and it's a couple inches over 5 feet in diameter. So that's an impressive one, and I have an episode of my series all about ginkgo and how in mid-November they do a highly coordinated senescence of their leaves. First their leaves turn a very bright yellow, and then they usually fall within a pretty restricted period of time. Sometimes it seems like it's in a day. Usually it's more like a week, but it's pretty impressive nonetheless. And then you're left with the lawn just littered with these bright yellow leaves like a carpet all around the base of the ginkgo. So this is an impressive one. Now this one has seen better days, as we'll see here. This one was also probably struck by lightning. I've seen a lot of this on a lot of these trees. And it's hollowed out somewhat underneath that dead wood. And there's also something living here. I can't exactly tell what it is. It could be groundhog, could be fox. I don't know. There's the entrance with the little ramp. I can't really see droppings or anything out around here, so cemeteries like this are known to be sanctuaries for things like foxes and urban coyotes. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if there are foxes that are frequent this cemetery. Maybe we'll see one today. Next to the ginkgo tree I profiled there, and I want to point out that I've seen an extremely large ginkgo, one of the largest in the nation, in another cemetery. That was Cave Hill Cemetery in Louisville, Kentucky. Has one there that's probably over 7 feet in diameter. So add another 2 feet in diameter on that. It's amazing. But this tree nearby is a cucumber tree. This is a Magnolia acuminata. This is a native tree to Ohio, but it's not common for this part of the state. So it has large leaves. There are other magnolias with extremely large leaves, like big leaf magnolia, but it has a kind of a smooth, shallowly furrowed bark, gray bark. And this is a really nice spreading habit, highly branched, very ornamental looking tree And you can see why so many members of the magnolia family are used as ornamentals, either the shrubs, the ornamental magnolia shrubs or small trees, and then even some larger trees like the cucumber tree. As we continue on this oak series, here's another that has pretty finely furrowed bark for an oak, sort of like that willow oak in a way. And here's what the leaf looks like. Get out here in the sun. Okay, maybe take, where are we? Here we go. All right, so this leaf has a little bit, some aspects of a bur oak in that the upper half of the leaf is a little bit different than the lower half. It's clearly in the white oak group because there are no prickles at the ends of the lobes, and it's quite whitish on the underside. All right, now those kinds of things, those shallow lobes, slight unevenness to the leaf, and the whitish underside makes this swamp white oak. Okay, that's a native oak of Ohio. And there's a nice specimen here at Woodland. I'm sure there are more. Here I'm at the south edge of Woodland, near the campus of University of Dayton, which is right across the street. And behind me, I don't want to neglect some evergreens, conifers. So here's a really nice view of some white pines. White pine is a native pine for Ohio, and it's a 5-needle pine. So it has, in each of its bundles, needle bundles, there are 5 needles. They're long, 3 to 5 inches long, and soft and flexible. Okay, and here out in this open grown, they're really well branched. They look fluffy. Here's this one thing about white pine: when you see them from a distance like this, they're beautiful. They look fluffy, okay, because of those kinds of needles. And there's another one in the distance right there. Now, when you look at this tree, as I get close to it, and you see on the ground, there's a lot of needles falling. They look like they're dead, right? There's a lot of brown in these branches. And every fall, this happens. And every fall, people call or write to ask, is my tree dying? You have to remember that these needles are just, they are leaves. They are evergreen. They last for a few years, but not forever. They eventually die. Okay, so these needles that are turning brown and falling are needles that are probably, 2-3 years old, maybe 4 years old. So they'll stay on the tree for a couple years and then they fall. So indeed, these are deciduous too, but when they lose needles, they retain the current year and the last year's green needles. Okay, so they are still evergreen. Okay, we see some columnar white cedars as well, or arborvitae. Okay, there's a native arborvitae, but there are also cultivated ornamental varieties not native to Ohio. Okay. Now back where I started, back toward the edge over here, I don't want to neglect, here's a spruce. Those pendulous branches tell you that's a Norway spruce. Okay, they have those hanging pendulous branches. But over here was a row, I've noticed, of trees that kind of look like spruce. Their needles are about the same length. They kind of have the appearance, this row here, right along here. Okay. And here's what they look like up close. Now when I get close to these, I see that the needles are very soft. They're very fragrant. Okay, the fragrance of these needles reminds me of winter holidays, okay, Christmas and what have you. There are cones there. If you look at these cones, they have little sort of sharp, on each scale has a little bit of sharp looking bract or bracteole, okay, and that makes this a Douglas fir. Okay, there's the cone. Seeds have dropped out already, okay, and they just have a beautiful smell. genus Pseudotsuga menziesii. There's a whole row of them here. Okay, I just simply love the smell of fir needles. It's one of my favorites of any tree in terms of odor. Okay, now this is Pseudotsuga is the genus, and over here is kind of a crappy looking Tsuga. This is eastern hemlock, Tsuga carolinense. All right, and here's the tiny cones of eastern hemlock. These can grow to be giant trees, 5-6 feet in diameter, and they start from very tiny seeds in these very tiny cones. This one doesn't look too great. They like a little bit more shade, I think, than where this tree is located. They like cool shaded valley floors and things like that. Native to Ohio, but not this part of Ohio, outside of one location, and that's in Clifton Gorge, out in Clifton, Ohio. Okay, and that's Tsuga, and that's Pseudotsuga, because they kind of look alike, sort of, when they're healthy. All right, let's hit a few more highlights and then we'll conclude this episode. There are over 110,000 people memorialized in this cemetery. There are probably 100 dead ash trees as well. But there is one sign of hope here that I'm continuing to see that really supports the observations we made in more natural areas here in Ohio, and that is the survival of blue ash in the face of emerald ash borer. So while most of the white, green, and black ashes that were here are either dead or in deep decline, I've seen a number of blue ashes, Fraxinus quadrangulata, in quite good health. Not that some of them are not being attacked, but here's a beautiful one that's completely filled out. Its canopy is completely full, showing no signs of attack really that I can see. And I also am not sure that that tree has not been treated more recently. But this does support our observations in the woods, and we have papers on this kind of thing. The blue ash is faring pretty well in the face of emerald ash borer while the others are succumbing. I can't see any evidence that there was any trunk injections done on this tree. Now, trees can be treated with root injections or soil injections as well, and I can't tell whether that's happened here or not. I'll try to check with the grounds folks here. But that's a very nice blue ash in full health, staving off extinction from emerald ash borer. It's really good to see. I've noticed in a few locations here at Woodland that they've allowed some amber honeysuckle to grow. And that's surprising. Again, this tree in front of me is among our worst invasive species in this state, in the Midwest really. But I noticed, like, here's a large patch, here's a large individual. I've seen a few others scattered around, and that's their decision, of course, but the only thing I can guess is that these were ornamentally planted trees. If you look at the size of this thing, this will give you an idea of how large an amber honeysuckle shrub can get. All right, so this thing has been around. It's been around a while. So this was probably originally planted here, I'd say 50 years ago or something, when it was okay to plant amber honeysuckle as an ornamental. This thing was brought here on purpose, right? But it just sort of escaped its bounds, gets spread everywhere by birds, and has become a major invasive species. So they seem to be retaining some, and which is a decision they've made. And I assume it's because these were intentionally planted trees. It might be part of their management plan or decision-making process to honor these things, I guess. But probably be better if they were gone. So if I have one criticism, I'd get rid of those trees. With my interest in bonsai, I took a look at this naturally shapely tree and automatically recognized it as a very popular bonsai subject. This is Japanese white pine. Very popular bonsai subject, and you can see just how very uniform and stylized it appears, and there's been no special pruning or anything on this tree, but it forms real nice dense needles in bundles of 3 to 5 I've seen, and again, the whole goal of bonsai is to kind of reproduce this sort of thing, maybe with a little bit more trunk movement and things at a small scale. But yes, that is Japanese white pine, a very common bonsai subject. I want one. No visit to Woodland would be complete without visiting the graves of Dayton's most famous sons, the Wright brothers. And here they are, here they lie. This is the memorial to the Wright brothers, of course, who maybe not invented flight, they invented powered flight, and they perfected flight here in Dayton. They went to North Carolina to try it out first, but they came back here to further perfect it, and they were from Dayton. Most people in this area know that story. Others have to be reminded, this is indeed where they were from, Dayton, Ohio. And here are those two famous sons, Wilbur Orville, and their sister, Catherine. And their parents, Milton and Susan, have markers just a little bit behind the children. So there you go. It's amazing what they started. There are a number of other famous people, nationally, internationally famous in this cemetery as well. Like Paul Laurence Dunbar, African-American poet from Dayton, and many others, okay, many other people of local notoriety, but also made a mark on the national and international stage in engineering and business, things like that, Ketterings and so forth. So, you know, I'm here for the trees first and foremost, but it's always interesting to take a look at the gravestones as well and appreciate the people that are memorialized here. All right, onward. As I said, Woodland Cemetery represents one of the highest points around the city of Dayton. It's about 900 feet in elevation. And so let's take a little walk out this little walk called the Lookout and overlook the city of Dayton. More dead ash trees on the way. This area was kind of established with these walks and so forth in 2011, and I saw signs on the way over that looks like they're restoring it again. So this is a popular spot to come get your picture taken or take pictures, and you'll soon see why. I can hear the city traffic down below, but it's pretty far down there. On the way, we're going to pass some more oak trees. Here's one I didn't profile yet today, but this is our good old-fashioned bur oak I've talked about many times on this series. Big, thick, furrowed bark, unevenly shaped leaves. Yeah, I can see some signs where they're reconstructing this pavilion and area. So let's take a look. Here's our big reveal. That's the mighty skyline of Dayton, Ohio. Now, at the confluence of a few rivers there, Dayton lies. Okay, the start of the Miami River, in flows the Stillwater and the Mad River and so forth. A lot of water accumulates around that city, and that led to flooding for many years. And there was a great Dayton flood, I think it was 1913. And where we are being a high point is known as being a refuge for when that happened. So a lot of people fled up under these bluffs that overlook these small rivers to get away from the floodwaters that devastated Dayton at the time. After that, a group of engineers devised a system of flood control dams that hold back water during times of high water and really have protected the city of Dayton ever since. It was kind of an engineering masterpiece. And around each of these flood-controlled dams are located many of the metro parks of the Five Rivers Metro Park system that serves the Dayton area, which is a great park system. Preserves about 50,000 acres, many of which are again around these flood control dams. There's Dayton. There's the tallest building in Dayton, it's about 30 stories. The darker one you see on the right side. All right. Here's a little spot where people can congregate, sit and contemplate things. Now the sun, you know, we're in late September now, so the sun's heading now a little bit more to our south, but toward the sunset would be in that direction. In the summer, it'd be more out over the city a little bit more. Okay, but there you go. So with that, I'm going to conclude this episode right here at Woodland Cemetery in Dayton, Ohio. Till next time, this is Don signing off. Bye-bye.